Alf, Frank, is anybody still collecting sports cards? Well, the answer is obviously yes, but there's a lot of nuance to this question that I want to dive into today. And the most important part of this video, I think, is going to be on the back half. So make sure you stick around to the end. We'll be right back. What's going on, sports card hobby family? How is everybody doing? I was trying to drop a few lbs after the national. I was kind of just like eating whatever. I've been like, you know what? I need to drop a few pounds. Well, my father-in-law came in from Italy somewhat unexpectedly. We kind of planned it a couple weeks ago, and he's going to be here for a few weeks. And he's from Florence, Italy. And as you might guess, he can cook. And so with my Italian wife, and now I've got the father-in-law here cooking every night, it might be a little bit, I'm actually just going to skip breakfast, skip lunch, and just have an amazing dinner every night. That's kind of the game plan, but you know how it goes. Hey, middle-aged dads, we're just doing the best we can. Before I really dive in, talking about collecting cards, the place you want to be is COMC.com. 35 plus million cards in the database. It doesn't get much better. It's so easy to buy and sell on the platform. You can grade cards there. You can auction cards off there. It's just a very easy platform to work on and very popular in our hobby. I've got links down below to start your Comm Seed journey today. All right, first I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey here over the last, 6-7 years and how it has evolved, but I can kind of tie it into the larger picture. We know, and myself included, I've speculated on certain cards and got burned on them. And that's just kind of the way it has been over the last few years. We had the huge Mount Everest boom of cards going back 2020 to 2021, kind of towards the end of 2021. And then really we've been in somewhat correction mode for a lot of cards. Now, I know there's exceptions to this rule, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, of course. But the exceptions are few when we're looking at kind of the larger sports card, trading card space. Really from 2022 to, if you can believe this or not, we're actually heading into 2025. We're on the back end of 2024. So we're in like a 2.5-year correction on most cards, which if you're collecting cards, it's fantastic news. Stuff has been coming back down to normal and you can actually feel like you're getting a deal on something. Whereas back then it just felt like it was a rocket ship up, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to get in on a lot of cards. For me personally, over the last 12 months, I have tried to move into some larger items, so selling off some of my inventory, some of my volume here, and I'm taking an honest assessment of like, hey, what's the stuff that I really, really love that I don't want to get rid of, and what's stuff that is expendable to get into a few larger items? And that's what I've really tried to focus on over the last 12 to 15 months. And part of the reasoning for this is, one, I want those cool larger items that, stuff that you just never think that you're going to get. Secondly, though, it's to curb my spending. That's the bigger, I think kind of the bigger picture here is no secret on my channel. I've had issues with that in the past, just having impulse control and just buying stuff, scrolling on eBay. If I'm just sitting there scrolling on eBay, I can find stuff in a matter of minutes. I can find cool stuff that I want to own. And then having that self-discipline, it lacked for me going back a couple of years especially. And so if I'm having to be more disciplined to get up into larger items, it helps curb my overall spending issues that I have had on kind of the lower to mid-end stuff. And there's so many cool things on the high end, on the low end, on the mid-end. So the goal that I'm trying to achieve is collecting and speculating all in one with the larger items. Items that I think are just amazing. And again, stuff that I never necessarily knew that I was going to obtain, but that I also think have upside value over time, upside potential. They have the ability to move up over time. And if they don't really move up over time, I'm okay with that. I think that they'll tread water, hold over time. This one in particular has gone up here, not just over time, but recently, as we know, Star Basketball. That's the one where I kind of just nailed it. And I've got a few other of the Jordan 84 stars as well. Not the 101s, but the 195, the 288, and so forth. I'm also not afraid to go against the grain for what a hobby trend is currently. We've seen over time, over the decades, going back to the 80s when really heavy speculation came into the market at that point. But we've seen trends change. You know who has made a ton of money or has a lot of equity in cards, in quotation marks? Folks that had vintage baseball cards, or probably just vintage sports cards in general, that got in-person autographs going back in time. If you were collecting that stuff going back, decades, and you've got, 60s card signed by Sandy Koufax, it's in decent shape and he signed it and the autograph has been authenticated. I mean, we've seen a ton of that stuff. Robert Edward Auctions, one of my channel partners recently, has been crushing sellers that are finally opening up those collections and selling some of that stuff. They're doing amazingly well. But you know what? That was considered idiotic to do not even that long ago, 5-10 years ago. The whole idea of an in-person autograph on a rookie card, and not even for those baseball cards, doesn't even have to be a rookie card. It can be just a cool 50s, cool 60s card. And there's a lot of added value to those vintage cards with the auto, especially for players that have passed away that, of course, can't sign anymore. But that's an example of a trend. That was something that was completely taboo. You're an idiot. You're defacing the card. You were an absolute complete fool for doing it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, maybe you weren't such a fool after all. So trends can change over time. Hobbyist collectors, their taste can change. There's no guarantees with any of this stuff. The hobby rules, so to speak, they can change. It can all change over time depending on, how things evolve and how people feel. Who are the new collectors? Who are the new hobbyists? And do they necessarily agree with what was being done, 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago? Maybe they do for certain things and maybe they don't for others. All right, the part of the video I really wanted to focus on here, because I think it's really important. It really doesn't get a whole lot of fanfare on social media because it's kind of like, look, when you watch a TV show, the lifestyles of the rich and famous from the 80s, for whatever reason, folks are drawn to, big money items. Whether it's TV shows or social media, it's like, oh, look at the new Ferrari, look at this huge house, MTV Cribs. Let's look at where athletes live and what are they spending their money on. People are drawn to it. It's interesting. It's entertaining. What do these multimillionaires do in their free time? Even the housewives of Beverly Hills. Why do all of these folks watch that sort of stuff? They're just dumb reality shows. Kardashians. It's because they're living the high life, money-wise, financially. I can't speak for their actual personal life, but the whole idea is they're sitting there living in luxury, and the average Joe's just wondering, like, what do those people do with their day? And you'll get pieces of that by watching these shows. So, and the same thing happens in our hobby with sports cards. Even yesterday, I made a joke about, offering the bounty. Jeff Wilson is offering a huge bounty. The Blaze sports cards, guys are offering bounties on a lot of these newer cards, these one-of-ones that are popping up. David Adams offering huge bounties, and that stuff is interesting. It draws eyeballs, it gets people's attention. But the vast majority of what I saw at the National and just in the collecting space, when you really dive into what people are doing at the card shows and shops, and really the thing that we need to emphasize, I think, on social media, that is really the bread and butter. It's the meat, it's the foundation, the meat and potatoes of the whole dang thing, is lower to mid-end stuff. It's the dollar box stuff, and not dollar boxes. Yes, I know some people are in there, they're trying to find a dollar card that might be worth 10 so they can flip it or grade it or whatever. But there's also just people that are looking for, let's use an example here, Jaylen Brown cards. I found these couple of cards that were laying around. These are Optic, of course, going back a few years. And these are $2 cards, $5 tops. And Jaylen Brown, one of the best players in the NBA right now, he's got a lot of fantastic cards. He's got rookie cards that are inexpensive as well. But if you want shiny, flashy, a hit, so to speak, there's a lot of shiny, flashy chrome cards that are very inexpensive that you can pick up. And if you're a young person, look, I know that a lot of emphasis on the young people at the National that've got the Pelican case. And they bring out cards, and I'm just like, how on earth do you afford these cards? And I know they've probably traded up into it or whatever. And sure, that's all great. And absolutely, I'm not against young people learning about how business works, buying and selling, and how, flipping cards. Nothing against it at all. But for the kid that doesn't have $1,000 for a card, like I'm a Drew Brees collector. People don't realize that the blue Prism, it's not a numbered card, going back to 2018 Prism, is a really tough to find card. It's a short print in 2018. If you look at the Tom Brady version of this card, or even the Silver Prism. The Silver Prism was short printed in 2018. They're difficult to find. I think I got this one for maybe $30 or $35. So it's not as if they were giving it away, but this is just an example of a player. Pick whoever your favorite player is, and you can find really good prices on this stuff. If you go back in time a little bit, I joke about Bobby Hebert, 86 tops. I got this entire 86 tops set in a binder about 2 years ago, And this was, again, during like the height. I found it at a card shop for $100. It included the Jerry Rice rookie in it. And I'm not saying it's like a PSA 9 or 10 Jerry Rice card, but the whole binder was $100. And that sort of stuff is out there, whether people realize it or not. Oh, you want Michael Jordan cards? You don't have to get PMGs. I paid, I think, $60 for the SGC 10 because I wanted a nice copy and a 10. But this card is available all day raw for a few bucks, maybe $5, maybe it's $7 or something like that for this card, just ungraded. I bought a complete set of 89 hoops for $40 in a binder off eBay going back a few weeks that included this card. It wasn't as if they, didn't include it. Also, I collect Stranger Things cards. If you're into the entertainment side, the pop culture cards, they tend to be a lot less expensive than sports cards. I'm collecting this blue set that's out of 11. It's in this past Zero Cool. Is it Zero Cool or is it Tops? Yeah, this was in the last kind of Zero Cool season 4. These are all numbered out of 11, so a little bit tougher to find. And there's like 20 characters in this particular set. And I'm collecting this set. I think this card was $20 or $25. I graded the card because I'm going to have, the idea is to have a complete set of those. I think it's 20 character cards. I've got most of kind of the more expensive cards in that set with 11 and Vecna, Henry, so that's just kind of a fun, low cost set that you can get excited about. I can search on eBay and look, okay, are there any more of those blue out of 11 Stranger Things cards that have popped up today? No? Okay, and then I move off of it. I don't necessarily need to then go and look for all the other stuff. Just sticking with getting real focused. That's something that over the last 6 years since I've been back in the hobby, a lot more focus. And a lot of it is too, just understanding that I can very easily just go and spend and just find cool stuff to spend on, and I need to be focused. And buying those bigger items, that wasn't meant to be a flex. That was more of me showing, why did I buy in those items? For one, if I'm going to speculate, maybe getting into some of those items I feel like have upside, but also just controlling the spending habit that needed, going back about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, needed to get a little bit more under control. But again, the major message from this video that I want to get across, whether you're 80 or whether you're 10, and you're just getting back into this hobby, or you've been in and you're trying to find your way, be so concerned about, that card needing to get a 10, or, oh man, it's only worth $5. That's a trash card. There's some amazing looking cards that are a few bucks. It doesn't necessarily mean just because it's expensive that particular card is better. Look at how many prospects are very expensive right now, and then a year down the road, all of a sudden, they're not expensive anymore. Now, all of a sudden, they are lower end because that prospect didn't work out or something bad happened, i.e. Wander Franco. Great prospect, but everything went down the toilet along with the card prices. So don't forget that. Many of today's high-end cards, in quotation marks, can be tomorrow's low end. All right, my friends, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.